Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game with over 100 cards, and 99% of those cards are bad. However, these bad cards still make it into players' Edison format decks every single day. Join me as I dive deep into the abyss of bad card design and put these unloved pieces of cardboard to the ultimate test. 3 duels against random strangers on the internet. At the end of each episode, we'll reveal each card's place on the Cursed Tech tier list, ranking them from almost competitive to downright unplayable trash. Will we stumble upon a broken combo, invent a new deck, or will we just go insane trying to win a duel using Frog the Jam? You will just have to wait and find out. This is Cursed Tech. Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of Cursed Tech. I have a question. Do you ever just wake up and choose violence? You know, you just wake up, you want to go and just cause some chaos in the world, make other people's days worse? While this already describes everyone that played Dark Worlds in 2011, is this style of villain possible in Edison format? Let me explain. If some of you did not have the unfortunate reality of playing against a Dark World player in 2011, essentially they would look at your hand, discard all the important cards out of your hand, and it was awful. It was terrible. You couldn't, it was a separate style of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you're trying to do something and your opponent's sole existence is to stop you from doing that thing. But don't worry. Thankfully for Edison players, this style of deck does not exist. Didn't exist. This style of deck did not exist yet. In today's episode of Cursed Tech, we are doing something slightly different. We're not looking at one card, but instead a concept. Violence. First of all, violence, but also hand destruction. Those that are true fans of Cursed Tech will know that this is essentially the continuation of the Hell Polymer episode. But while that deck sat at the edge of respectability, this deck that we're gonna look at today dives into the toxic abyss like no other. Here is the plan. Essentially, this deck does 3 things. First of all, it discards a lot of cards. Your opponent is not going to have a hand. Secondly, it gains full hand knowledge. You're gonna know everything your opponent is trying to do. And third of all, it snowballs and stops your opponent from ever coming back into the game once you get started.
New card. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday.
Good coloring.
That's bone. And the lettering is something called Cillian Rail.
It's very cool, baby, but that's nothing. Look at this. That is really nice. What do you think?
Nice.
Jesus. That is really super. How'd a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
Let's see Paul Allen's card.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Something wrong? Patrick? You're sweating.
Cards like Spiritual Water Art Owie, Trap Dust Shoot, and Drag Down into the Grave let you know everything that is in your opponent's hand. And cards like DE Designator, Mind Crush, and others let you rip those cards out for free. In terms of monsters, you know we gotta run the Hell Polymer.
Sayut Kaningas.
And for our Monarch of choice, we're gonna go with Thessalos, ripping cards out for free, and actually has a decent attack stat at 24. How could I forget Hinu Kagutsuchi? If this card ever resolves, you win the game. And lastly, we have Fenrir. Nope, not that Fenrir. Much better, the much worse Fenrir. This episode is not gonna have the traditional Cursed Tech structure. There's no anime clips. Well, actually maybe there is one anime clip that some of you might know. This deck plays, I am not joking, Light Force Sword. We are playing. Do you know how long 4 standby phases is?
You've activated my trap card! Trap card? My Light Force Sword! This trap card allows me to slash one card out of your hand for the duration of the turn. No!
Now, some of you probably think I'm going to apologize. I'm going to take this moment to say I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. Today, I chose violence. Today, I want to discard 5 cards from my opponent's hand and make them have the worst dueling experience of their lives. Here is the deck list.
Behold, my Fenrir Turbo deck. This deck is very evil. Just look at these cards. First of all, you are trying to use the Frog Engine in order to get a hefty supply of waters into the graveyard. If you have waters, you can summon Fenrir. And Fenrir is like slightly not even Yata-Garasu, but wants to be Yata-Garasu. This card is a free special summon if you have 2 waters in the graveyard, and theoretically, it can lock your opponent out of drawing cards. If they only have cards to set, and this guy is bigger than the monsters they're going to set, it can lock your opponent out of the game. The idea of this deck is you are going to be looking at your opponent's hand, and you are going to be discarding cards from your opponent's hand. You are going to be taking their monsters, looking at their hand, disrupting their plays, and driving them insane. Next up, we've got the Hell Poemer. You guys know this guy from my previous video, and you know what works very well with Hell Poemer is the compulsory evacuation device. I took your guys' advice in the comments, and yeah, this is an auto-include in Hell Poemer decks. 3 Compulse is insane. Not only is Compulse good in Frogs to begin with because it is a chainable trap card that will not be stuck behind your Treeborn Frog if you're trying to summon in the standby phase, but also you can put cards in their hand to discard with the Hell Poemer. Next up we got the Thessalos. He rips cards out of the hand. He's attractive. He has 20... Whoa. He has 2,400 attack points. Hino Kagusuchi. This is a muscular card. Look at this guy. Okay, then we got the Frogs. You've seen the Frogs enough times. You know what's going to happen. But have you seen this card? DD Designator. I think this card is the best card in this deck. This card could be played in side decks a lot in Edison format. Declare one card name, look at your opponent's hand, and if they have the declared card in their hand, remove from play that card. This card not only gives you hand knowledge of everything in your opponent's grip, but it also can banish key pieces that your opponent added to their hand. Hero Beat, adding anything off of Stratos, oh, that card gets banished. Zombies, Goblin Zombie effect, oh, DD Designator, I can look at your hand, banish your key piece. This card is actually really good. Drag Down from the Grave gives you full knowledge so you can use your DD Designator more appropriately. And Mind Crush does the exact same thing. If you get full hand knowledge and then flip Mind Crush, you basically just, they can't do anything. Spiritual Water Art Owie also gives you full hand knowledge and a hand rip and works perfectly with our Treeborn Frog engine and all of our frogs. And Light Force Sword is the worst card in this deck. And you can't forget the hand rip that everyone plays, Trap Dust Shoot. Let's get into the duels. This first duel, we are up against Amaryllis Burn, and my opponent, Stinky Guy, this guy was a cool guy. He was a fan of the channel. He was afraid of Montage Dragon, but don't worry, Stinky Guy. What is coming is much less fun and much more frustrating. He is just going to set one monster and pass his turn to us. We are going to normal summon this Swap Frog, activate the Swap Frog effect to send a Treeborn Frog to the graveyard. We're then going to set Light Force Sword, set Spiritual Water Art Owie, and then pass the turn. During the standby phase, we are going to activate Spiritual Water Art Owie in order to look at my opponent's hand. And let's see what he's got. Dandelion, Lone Fire Blossom, Titanial, of course, because you got to draw this card, Brain Control, Mark of the Rose, and Hidden Armory. He sends that Lone Fire to the graveyard, and we are then going to activate Light Force Sword. We are going to banish a random card from his hand, and my opponent sees clearly what's coming next. He is then just going to set another monster and then pass his turn. We draw for turn a DD Designator, which is very good because we already know everything that is in his hand. We're then going to do some substitute shenanigans in order to get the dupe block to our side of the field. Then we set the Spiritual Water Art Owie and then pass the turn. We're also going to use this Light Force Sword to show how many standby phases pass. My opponent draws a trade-in, which is not bad at all. He's going to discard that dead Titanial and draw 2 new cards. Then he is going to flip up this Raikou and target one of our dupe frogs. We're then going to chain Spiritual Water Art Owie on the targeted dupe frog and look at his hand and discard another card. We see he has some fairly decent cards, but we do not want to get his DDR live, so we are going to discard this Mark of the Rose. He then decides to activate the Brain Control, and he's going to normal summon a Plague Spreader Zombie and Synchro Summon with all three of those into a Goyo Guardian. This card is going to be a major problem for us if we cannot find an out. He passes his turn to us, and we draw an out. All right, we're going to special summon that Treeborn Frog from the graveyard. We tribute summon this Thessalos, discard the final card from his hand because sometimes it just be like that. We're then going to go to the battle phase, attack into the Dandelion, set this Compulse, and then pass the turn. He draws for a turn, goes to the battle phase, and tries to attack over our Thessalos, but thankfully we have the Compulse. We are going to put that Goyo back into the hand. He sets one monster and then passes the turn. We draw a Fenrir, just what I like to see. We are going to special summon this Treeborn Frog from the graveyard. We are then going to special summon this Fenrir from the hand, go into the battle phase, attack over the face down, and this Fenrir will make my opponent skip his next draw phase. Then we just pass the turn, and he doesn't get to draw, and he's got no cards, but he does have one card. He gets this Hidden Armory back to his hand. He's going to use that Hidden Armory. That Mark of the Rose was exactly what he needed to stop this Fenrir lock, but we are still in a pretty good position. He's just going to switch this token to attack and then pass the turn. We attack into the token with the Treeborn Frog. We both take 100 damage because of this Volcanic Counter, and then we can attack him for 2400 damage directly. We pass the turn back. He gets our Thessalos back, and then he is going to go to the battle phase, attack into our Treeborn Frog for 2300. Things are not looking good. We get this Thessalos back to us. We're going to summon the Treeborn Frog, go to the battle phase, attack my opponent for 2400, set the Compulse, and then pass the turn. My opponent draws for a turn. They are then going to get the Thessalos back. Then they are going to activate the effect of Plague Spreader Zombie in order to stack that card. Then we are going to chain the Compulse in order to put this Thessalos back into our hand. And then my opponent admits defeat. That I played terribly. It was a terrible game. What do you expect? This is a terrible deck. Time for game number 2, and we are going second yet again. This hand looks pretty decent. We got some frogs, we got some stuff going on. We are just going to special summon this Swap Frog, activate the effect in order to send a Treeborn Frog. Normal summon the Substitoad, and we are going to go for the dupe block. I don't know why. This is a horrible play. He has a Raikou set. Things are not looking good for me. He's going to flip this Raikou, pop our dupe frog, mill an Amaryllis, and yeah, things are not looking good. He's then going to activate Hidden Armory, milling a Hidden Armory, and adding a Mark of the Rose to his hand. He's going to attack into our Substitoad for 100 damage. We draw a very good card, the Fenrir. We are going to special summon this Treeborn Frog. We then activate DD Designator, and we know for a fact he has the Mark of the Rose in his hand. Not only do we get to banish the Mark of the Rose, but we also get to look at his hand and get full knowledge. We see he has a Titanial, Amaryllis, Brain Control, and some conditional cards that are not looking too good for him. We then special summon this Fenrir by banishing 2 water monsters, tribute summon this Thessalos, discarding a card from his hand, and thankfully for us, we do hit the DDR. We attack over his Raikou with the Fenrir, and he is going to have to skip his next draw phase. Then we can attack him directly for 2400. He can't draw, but he does have that Brain Control, so he is going to activate the Brain Control, do the same play he did last time, attack over our Fenrir with the Thessalos, but he can't do anything else after that, so he just passes the turn back to us. We draw a Spiritual Water Art Owie, but that does not matter. We summon the second Thessalos, and this is game. We know what he has, and there is nothing he can do.
And now the moment you have all been waiting for, the Cursed Tech tier list. This deck is good at one thing: ruining your opponent's plans. Edison format is interesting compared to GOAT format in that a lot of the monsters and strategies in Edison format have a high power level. You use a bunch of small monsters to maybe make a big synchro or summon a big boss monster. But what if one of those pieces is missing? Does the whole deck fall apart? That is the entire concept of this hand destruction deck. However, if your power comes from knowledge, knowledge is not going to be able to stop a giant threat that is already on the field. Therefore, I'm going to put this deck in the...
Hey, it's me later in the night. Don't play that deck. That deck is really bad. I don't know what I was thinking. It's unplayable trash. There's not a single good thing about that deck. Not only are the cards evil, but it's just a bad deck. It's a very bad deck. Don't listen to anything I said. I was being evil in the video.